Let's quickly kind of wrap up with a couple of, not wrap up, but we're heading towards the end. We're just some player and team updates.
Yeah.
Kind of bigger piece of news to come out of Washington. Nick Backstrom needs to have hip resurfacing surgery. I don't even know what that means, but it will reportedly require a quote-unquote lengthy recovery. I'm assuming he's going to miss a good portion of the season with this.
Anything hip related isn't good for a hockey player,
especially a guy who's in his 30s now. This cap, what this signals to me, rather than Nick Backstrom, and when Nick Backstrom comes back and maybe has a good season or retires, we can spend time talking about him. But this for me is like a signal of the beginning of the end for the Caps. They're an old team. Ovi is still scoring goals, but he's in his late 30s. Oshie's in his 30s. Backstrom is in his 30s. John Carlson is going to be getting up there as well.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of think that they're going to be taking some steps back, unfortunately, coming up. I think the beginning of the end kind of started over the last couple of years with them squeaking into the playoffs and having some pretty shocking first-round performances.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'll still be in the hunt for a playoff spot coming up. I do, just because they are the Caps. But I think we're kind of starting to see the beginning of the end for what was a good team not a good team, a great team for a decade and a half.
Yeah, the writing's been on the wall for a while. I don't think since they won the cup they've won a playoff round. And even Ovechkin said after this season, he said this team's in blur out the bad words, in a bleeping bad position right now.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, from an emotional perspective, it's so sad. I was a huge Crosby fan growing up, so I didn't necessarily like the Washington Capitals, but objectively as a hockey fan, Ovechkin and Backstrom are like our generation's like McDavid and Draisaitl kind of way.
Yeah.
Those guys grew up together. When you thought about the Washington Capitals, you would think of that dynasty duo, and the fact that it's coming to an end now, it's kind of sad to see. Like, we're getting kind of old.
Yeah, well, that's
things are changing.
The underlying unfortunate thing that comes out of these guys kind of retiring is like, geez, I watched these guys when I was 10. How old am I?
I watch a lot of hockey, and I didn't know that Ovechkin was completely gray-haired. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
The guy took off his helmet, and I was like, holy moly. Like, the last 15 years flashed right before my eyes. And now seeing Nick Backstrom, who used to be, honestly, one of the best centers in the league because he played beside Ovechkin and was one of the craziest playmakers I've ever seen, be out for all this time. Yeah, it's sad. It's the game's changing. New players are coming in.
The Metros, that division where we're seeing really a change of the guard.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh and Washington kind of on their way out. Now you have the Canes, the Rangers are the young up-and-coming team. The Islanders are going to be back. I think both these teams, Pittsburgh and especially Pittsburgh, we'll talk about them maybe in another episode because they're in a bit of a mess. Pittsburgh and Washington are going to be kind of clawing for a playoff spot. It used to be the other way around.
This new generation of hockey, and I don't want to sound like an old timer here, but the newer generation of hockey fans are just never gonna see the best two players in the league going head to head in the same division. And
true.
We would see Crosby, Malkin versus Ovechkin, Backstrom so many times a year, so many playoff matchups. Like now, the equivalent would be like a McKinnon or versus a McDavid or a Matthews or one of those three, but they don't play in the same divisions. Like you won't see it as often.
It's true,
and it's so sad. It's bad for hockey.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right about that. Another interesting point. Weber's contract. I don't know how the heck Montreal managed to get out of that and do really, really well on the deal. I think. Listen, this trade, it was Weber for Dadonov, 1-for-1. It's a good trade for both teams because they have very different needs, very different circumstances. But I think the Habs actually kind of hit a home run here. So they get $7.8 million in cap hit off the books. It's a lot less in real money, but that means they don't have to operate in LTIR, which is we always talk about LTIR being desirable for good teams because it gives them that boost in cap space. But for a team who's not trying to contend, it's actually not good because one, it means you're spending more money to be bad, which is from an owner's perspective terrible. But also, I think it has implications for sending guys up and down in different ways. Like it does impact financially. I don't know the cap inside, and I'm not Brandon Pridham, but from what I read, it does have an impact just on the day-to-day kind of shenanigans that go on, I guess, the day-to-day running of a team. So it's good for them. And they get Dadonov, who's good, one, so he can maybe play with the Suzuki and kind of help his development. And two, they're going to trade him. He's a UFA next season, so they're going to trade him and get assets for him at the deadline.
Mm-hmm.
So not only do they get under this huge cap hit, they got a guy who's going to help them in the short term and in the long term with some assets. So I think it's actually a pretty damn good trade for them. And then for Vegas, they saved Dadonov's cap hit. They saved that $5 million. That $5 million is going to go a long way for them. They're going to slap Weber and LTIR, so they'll save the $5 million. And I think it's kind of mutual benefit for both teams. I sort of rambled on this one a little bit. Do you have anything to add, or what your first thoughts are when you came across that?
I thought the funniest thing that came from this deal was the tweet that the Anaheim Ducks.
Oh yeah, yeah. I want you to tell us all what happened.
Well, no, I forget when Dadonov went. What team did he go to at the
Went to Anaheim.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's a brain fart. Evgeny Dadonov plays for Vegas and not for
Yeah.
Anaheim. He went to Anaheim at the deadline. He wasn't on the no trade list, and then he got sent back. And now, when this deal went through, the Anaheim Ducks commented on the official tweet saying, "Are you sure? Are you sure the deal's done?" Here's what blows my mind is like, the Anaheim Ducks were on his no trade list, but the Montreal Canadiens weren't. Especially for
That's weird
especially because, the older we get, the more that we understand that so many things past winning go into a hockey player's judgment of where they want to go. Anaheim's a great place to live. The climate is great. It's also in the States, which players love.
Mm-hmm.
And then he wants to go to Montreal where it snows half of the year. The team's just as bad, and it's in Canada.
Yeah, I that's kind of a head scratcher. I think what sort of the thing that people were saying is why I didn't want to go to Anaheim was because of the high tax rate. But you're going to be paying pretty high taxes in Montreal. Maybe it was just that he had a 10-team no trade list. He got the 10 markets with the highest tax rate, and maybe Montreal was that 11th or 12th team, and there you go. You can get sent there, and he did. So, yeah.
Also very sad that we're never going to see Shea Weber play another NHL game. True. Honestly, growing up, him and Doughty were two of the best defensemen in the NHL next to Hedman, and I remember those were the Carlson eras right. Too. The game has changed so much now. These players that everyone calls, overpaid and washed. Those guys were were amazing in our prime, and that's why we don't like those arguments. But yeah, it's kind of true. Shea Weber's done, and it's sad. It's bad for hockey.
Yeah, I mean, talk about the Habs. We got things to talk about moving forward, but yeah, even Carey Price might see this kind of the same deal. But let's move on. We've mentioned him a couple times this episode already. We didn't have a chance to get to it last episode, but Alex DeBrincat's name has been in some trade rumors, out of the Chicago Blackhawks. What are you shocked that his name's in trade rumors, considering they want to rebuild, or do you think it's smart? What are you thinking?
Oh yeah, we won't talk about this again. It's definitely smart. Go watch our last episodes where we talk about why Chicago needs to rebuild and get guys out of there to get assets.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard DeBrincat trade is a when, not an if thing. Now that I've heard, so expect him to go. I think that Alexander DeBrincat honestly might be the most underrated goal scorer in the NHL.
That's literally a note that I have on my thing.
Do you want to explain it?
Go for it.
Over the last 5 seasons, he's tied 8th in the league with Stamkos for most goals. Listen to the names above him: Ovechkin, Matthews, Draisaitl, McDavid, Pastrnak, Connor, McKinnon. Most people will not put him in that conversation.
He's right there.
The guy scores goals. Every year you see this guy putting up 30-something, 35,
40
very
even.
Quietly. For a team that requires scoring right now, I'm going to, Edmonton Oilers, if Evander Kane doesn't re-sign back, go get him. The guy has a cap hit of $6.4 million. It's cheap. It is so cheap. I think, DeBrincat honestly might be a top 5 goal scorer in the league. And, I'll kind of give into the TikTok comments here where we say we make everything about the Leafs. It's kind of funny that number 2 on this list is Austin Matthews. He has 219 goals, only 3 goals less than Ovechkin over the last 5 years. Wow. And Ovechkin's played 24 more games than him. How crazy is that?
Beast.
And Leon Draisaitl has, I think, 9 less goals than him. And he's played 50 more games than him. Crazy.
Yeah, he's so good. He's so good.
MV Poppy,
literally.
Okay, exactly what do you think about DeBrincat?
Yeah, I think, like you said, extremely underrated. Extremely underrated. I think this is the same as a Chychrun trade. He's still young. He's only 24, but when you're good, he's going to be older. And why would you want to pay a guy like 9 to 10 million when your team's going to be bad. Maybe you just get assets for him, and he is going to get paid 9 million at least because he's an RFA at the end of next year rather, and his qualifying offers 9 million.
Wow, he's 24.
He's 24.
He's our age.
He might be like a late 97 or something, but yes,
Wow.
he's not that much older than us, if at all. So I think it's a smart trade for them to make. I think that they're going to get a king's ransom for him. I think his return's going to be closer to, like, when we were talking about Pasternak a couple of weeks ago, I think his return's going to be a lot closer to Pasternak than people think.
Oh, without a doubt.
He's not that flashy name for whatever reason. Maybe because he was drafted in the second or third round, or maybe I don't know what the reason is, but I think within the league, he's probably got to be valued close to that because he's right up there with goal scorers, and he's been doing it playing sort of. He hasn't really played with a great center.
Oh.
Taves isn't great. We know that Strome is not great.
Getting better, but not
Getting
great.
better, but he's kind of is what he is. If you put him on a team with an elite playmaking center or an elite center of any kind, this guy's going to take another step, it's going to be dangerous.
It's insane. It's honestly, it's insane. And GMs and front offices aren't dumb. They know how good he is.
Yeah.
And they know that with the cap hit being low, like this
For
guy.
this season, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's honestly as good as a goal scorer as David Pastrnak has been over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people will clown me in the comments that because Pastrnak had that one fantastic year. Go look at the stats over the last 5 years. DeBrincat has been much better.
Yeah, no. He's so good.
You know what? Much better is not the correct word. He's been as good, if not better.
Yeah, as good is still a very, very good player.
Yeah.
I think honestly, I'd never thought of Edmonton, but I think that'd be crazy
If Kane doesn't come back.
Yeah, I don't know if they have the assets to do that, but in theory, that's a freaking fantastic ad. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content, and find the link to our full podcast and all our socials in the description down below.
Also, don't forget to turn on those notifications to get live updates on new videos that we release.